Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SAG-AFTRA podcast. I'm Duncan Crabtree-Ireland, SAG-AFTRA National Executive Director and Chief Negotiator. Today, we're going to explore a critical component of the union's contract enforcement, protecting member safety and rights on set, the SAG-AFTRA Field Services Department. During production, it's vital that working conditions and contract protections are being followed, from ensuring proper safety protocols are in place for stunts and intimate scenes, to confirming that minors' work hours are being respected and making sure background actors are managed safely during large crowd scenes. That's where SAG-AFTRA's field services representatives come in. Field reps are the front lines of contract enforcement. They're the cops on the beat for SAG-AFTRA. Now, to break down what you need to know about their essential role on set, I'm joined today by Jim Damas and Samantha McIver. Jim began his career at SAG-AFTRA decades ago as a field representative himself for the former Screen Actors Guild and is now Executive Director of Field Services for SAG-AFTRA. He's developed the expansion of the department nationally. He also supervises the Safer Set 24/7 hotline offering around-the-clock safety and working conditions protections on set. Samantha has worked as a stunt double on such productions as Captain America, The Winter Soldier, Jessica Jones, and The Wolf of Wall Street. In addition to chairing the New York Stunt Committee, she also sits on the SAG-AFTRA National Board. Jim and Samantha, thank you both so much for being here with us today. I'm excited for us to talk about this. Great. So, Jim, let's start out with you. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how it is that you came to join SAG-AFTRA as a field rep?
Sure, Duncan. Well, I grew up in a blue-collar house. My father was a steam fitter, and he was a member of a very powerful union. So I grew up knowing the support of that union and what that solidarity meant to working families like ours, the one I was raised in. We had a house in New Jersey. We always had medical coverage. We didn't have economic hardships. We vacationed down the Jersey Shore, and so it was a good, solid middle-class life. I went to Villanova. I was an English major, and then when I came out, wasn't thinking of going in, to work for a union, but I was offered a job as a business agent for a small Teamsters local, and I took it. Let me try that, and I stayed there a few years, and then I saw an ad in the New York Times that said "Film Field Rep Wanted." I said, that's for me. And I never looked back. I love working for SAG-AFTRA. It's a great union and doing great. You're on God's side doing this work. That's how I feel.
I love that. I love that story. And that's I think that resonates with a lot of us who do this kind of work. Maybe you can talk a little bit about what field reps do and what their primary role is, how it is that they go about helping protect members on set.
Sure. I mean, as you said earlier, they're the front lines of enforcement. They're the cops out there. They visit the sets to ensure that the companies are compliant with the CBAs, and they cover all the contracts, the TV, theatrical, new media, commercials, low budgets, you name it. We try to resolve all issues and claims on behalf of members. Working conditions, safety concerns, minors are the priorities. They have to know the practical application of work rules, how they play out on a set. They have to know the past practice and the agreed interpretation. So there's a lot that goes into the training. They're the voice of reason out there. The productions will tend to get caught up in the fog of getting the shot. And field reps are the only ones on that set who are not receiving a paycheck from that employer. So we could say, wait a minute, the emperor has no clothes. Are you kidding me? So anyway, they educate their counterparts, the ADs, the UPMs, to understand the contract interpretations. And of course, they meet with the members. The mantra is to try to get to every single member on a set. These are very valuable, important relationships, field reps with these members on set.
Yeah, it's interesting because, different unions have sort of different approaches to this. And I think one of the things that hopefully resonates with our members is when you have a field rep on set, it means that you don't have to take on that role of doing that enforcement job. And, some unions, especially in different kinds of settings, have shop stewards who sort of do a lot of that work. But those people often then put themselves, it puts them at risk. And maybe that's less of a risk when you're a full-time permanent employee for an employer. But in the kind of work that our members do, I know that many members do feel concerned about having to put themselves into that role. And so I think it is a great benefit to have staff members who can do that. And Samantha, let me ask you, you've interacted with field reps a lot, I'm sure, in your career as a stunt performer. How's your experience been working with field reps?
Well, it's exactly what you said, which is what I was thinking. Is a lot of stunt people, especially, we don't have usually don't have managers or any representatives besides our union. So when we have to approach a topic that makes everyone feel uncomfortable, I didn't get this, I didn't get my NDB, or I don't feel safe, then if we have the rep there, then they're just saying this is what they're supposed to get. So we're just speaking on behalf of our performers, which is what we deserve. And some people also kind of just let their emotions take over. So it is always better to get the reps to come and just show that we're not trying to fight with you. We're just trying to get what we're owed. And we do also keep in touch with them by email. I even have some phone numbers. And I'll tell you, Jim, I mean, when I started, he was on the field. He's the first one that I ever met. And so he has so much knowledge, and it's great to always go to him for questions. And I think they're always available. So I definitely appreciate the work that they do. And it's sometimes often, I always try to defend them, because it's often like they get stepped on by the producers or whatnot. And I'm not going to badmouth anybody, but it's I always say our staff is really doing the best that we can.
So without revealing any state secrets, Jim, how do field reps or you or whoever decides this decide what sets field reps should visit? Is there a system? Is it random? What can you tell us, again, without revealing anything that strategically we need to keep under lock and key?
No trade secrets, but basically, Duncan, it's prioritized towards stunts, hazardous or rough work, potentially dangerous locations. If minors are working, crowds or background actors, exteriors, extreme weather, anything that we perceive to be a potential working conditions concern. They work nights, weekends, holidays, whenever the priority is scheduled, we try to get a rep out there. We get the call sheets on the automatic distribution list, and this is critical. We have 100% compliance in this now. So they come out when the crew gets them. We get them the night before. And the reps, we decide, okay, they got two principals in a studio. They don't really need us. This other one is on a rooftop with a helicopter with 50 background and 30 stunt performers. We might go to that one, So that's how we basically break it down. The priority sets. We get the call sheets. We don't announce our visits. We like a candid view when we show up. Commercials, it's a little different though, Duncan. There's no contractual requirement to provide shooting information from the ad agencies, so we have to kind of find the commercials on our own. We use several industry resources for that, but members can always call in a commercial. We'll send a field rep, and as per the 22 commercials agreement, we do have members or performers engaged on a commercial should receive call sheets, and that includes background actors, so they could call us. LA field reps are a little different. We do it differently. They're assigned studios to cover. Just makes more sense. You could go out to the Warner Brothers lot and cover 3 shows. So they're exclusively assigned. Regional field reps cover by territory, so they might have 7 states they cover. Whatever's shooting there is theirs, and they make arrangements to go to those sets. And they try to cover the priorities, like I said. In New York, we break it down every single day. And that's Anthony Favicchia, who's the senior manager. I did that for many years. You get all the call sheets, you go over them the night before, and then you send them out to the reps, or here's your assignments for the day.
So maybe tell us a little bit about what it is like to actually visit a set as a field rep. What does a field rep do when they get there? Take us through the day of a field rep.
Number one concern, of course, is to ascertain that everybody is safe. Our performers are, in good shape. What are they being asked to do? Okay, are there stunts? Is the location safe? Are there any hidden dangers that need to be an immediate resolution? Are there minors working? What are they doing? Are minors' rules being observed? These are the first things a field rep is thinking of. Touch base with the stunt coordinator. Always intimacy coordinator if working, set teacher if working. Field reps will monitor the work, watch what's going on, watch the scenes, assessing if there's any violations. They always liaison with their production counterparts. These are the UPMs, the line producers, the ADs, establishing good relationships with these folks and going over upcoming concerns, so they can, accomplish those scenes within the guidelines of our CBA, of course. I could give you some examples. I mean, they deal with medics and ambulances as necessary, evaluating the viability of hazardous work, monitoring the involvement of background who might be on the fringe of a stunt, minors' work hours, like I said, well-being, their education, safety data sheets for FX products, location concerns, all of it. I mean, dressing rooms, holding areas, meal periods. It all comes under, on their plate. So they have a lot to look out for. Working outside, are there enough breaks? Are people in out-of-season wardrobe? Rest period violations, upgrades, all of it. So that's, whatever comes their way. Usually there's always a few issues that come to the fore and find their way to a field rep, or a field rep will discover on his or her own, and they have to deal with it. Meet all the members, of course, like I said, they do that. And we always have to keep in mind that it's an unobtrusive presence, always mindful, never to impede the workflow. Very important. We go hit that in training because, we have a right to be there per the basic agreement, but it does say cannot interfere with the work. So you have to be particularly on your toes, not to get in the way, or not even to be perceived that you're getting in the way, because they'll go there. Unless it's something that needs immediate attention, like a safety concern or something with a minor, then you go in full steam ahead. You don't worry about anything.
Samantha, let me ask you, from a member perspective, what do you think are some of the most important sort of issues and safety concerns that you want field reps to be looking out for when they're on set?
Number one is always a safety concern, but it's just great to have them be the other eyes to make sure that all the rules are being followed.
I mean, maybe we can talk about a specific area, such as minors, for example. Obviously, one of the kind of unique things about our industry is the concept of actually minors, including very young minors, actually working on set in this case. Are there specific concerns that either of you can sort of identify as it relates to minors that field reps ought to be looking out for when they're on set? Or how do field reps interact with, for example, studio teachers who have a safety responsibility with respect to minors or parents?
We always touch base with the studio teachers, and always glad to see them. And if a California minor, as you know, is working anywhere else, they have to have a California studio teacher on that set. The number one thing is the environment proper? Are they working in the situation cannot be detrimental to their health, moral safety? That's number one. That's in the contract. That's sacrosanct. Parent, guardian present all times, working hours, curfews, education. State laws that might be stricter, they have to look out for that. We connect with the parents and, try to make sure that we have their number if they need us, so they could call us anytime. But it's one of the priorities of field services that we're there and watching closely when minors are working.
And Samantha, have you had the chance to work with minors? I assume you have, probably, given the projects you've worked on.
I kind of enjoy it. I think I always work well with kids. Yeah, and I think that anytime I've ever worked on any shows with minors, that the productions themselves are always being very respectful. But I have seen some field reps step in and just make sure they're getting enough breaks and they're not going over their times. And I think I've even was so curious to ask, like, what age do you have to be to work X amount of hours? And actually, now that you're making me think a little, it was one of the last episodes of Blue Bloods that a friend of mine's daughter had to be hanging from a fire escape, and they made sure she had a stunt double. And the actress, the young minor actress, her mother is a stunt woman, so the actress was actually very good, but there was no way that she was going to be put up on the top fire escape, because they shot one on the first floor to just get her reactions and get her acting. But it just was a very safe set, and I'm positive there was a field rep there. I was trying to think who it was that day, but I didn't even think they needed to step in because everything was moving smoothly. But what's great about the field reps lately, I just feel like we've developed more relationships so that if there is a problem, and I think that sometimes we don't know if it's a rule or an issue or if it's just I remember one time just being on a large set and there was only one bathroom in the holding that we had with 200 people. And I was like, is this a safety thing? I think it's kind of is. And we, right away, I think I might have reached out to you, Jim, or maybe Anthony, and they said, we're just going to come because we don't really know. But I think that we really need to have more bathrooms because that's way too many people. Like something like that just becomes a little too, it's not completely unsafe, but it just doesn't feel like it should be allowed. So it's good that we could develop better relationships with the staff that are, able to come out and send people out. So,
with minors, one thing, if the minor perceives what they're being asked to do to be dangerous or something they'd rather not do because of safety, even though it might not really be that dangerous, they have every right to say no. And sometimes I'll never forget when I was a field, I was on a rooftop, and they wanted this kid to go. The scene was the kid being dangled over the side of the roof, and they had a big platform, and they had a harness and all this stuff. And the kid was saying, "Yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to." Because he got a sense that everybody wanted him to really do it. And I'm talking to the mother, and then we went aside and did a little caucus, and I was very happy that he decided not to do it then. I mean, and that's really what it's all about. You don't want to see a kid do something they don't feel comfortable doing.
One of the things that we know is that many members are sometimes hesitant to report issues because they're afraid of retaliation or blacklisting. And so, how has having access to field reps and being able to make reports, through that pathway and that channel, how does that affect members' feelings about that risk? Does it make members feel more comfortable to bring issues forward?
absolutely. I think that just because I have been around for 20 years, I feel like I just remember coming on set and just hearing, negative things a lot where it's just like, oh, don't say anything or you'll never work again. And that time has definitely changed. And that it does, but having that buffer, like we talked about before, having it where someone else could speak up for you so that you don't look like you're complaining or you just have questions. And some people don't know how to properly phrase things, and then they sound like, they're trying to get something they're not, they don't deserve. But I think that just it's important that we meet more people and you feel more comfortable with them, because there are still some stunt performers out there that think, I still don't trust putting a claim in. I think my name will get out. And I think that from the committee work that I've done over the past couple of years, I think people are definitely more comfortable and people are sending more emails.
Confidentiality, that's sacrosanct to field reps, and to anyone at the union. It's Union 101, and, it's a credo. It's part of our credo to protect members. Inviolable. That's the way we look at it. So, I mean, look, our members need to know that when they call us, it stays with us. Unless it's impossible. If you're playing the hot dog guy and you're calling about an upgrade, I don't know how we're going to pursue that if it's just about you. But we want to assure those members that, look, you have our trust. And, we need people to report. That's, to me, one of the biggest concerns still. I mean, we want full-blown reporting everywhere on sets, because not reporting undermines compliance, and just accepting things as they are. When there's something wrong, you might not know where it's amiss, but call the union in. We got to hold the line on this stuff. On work, when work rules are broken and they're not dealt with, that's how these practices fall away. And we need everybody to keep it up. We hear from crews sometimes who call us. Sometimes somebody gets discharged and they'll call and sick the union on, and sometimes there's fire to that smoke, but we need our members to call much more often. Many violations cannot be detected by a field rep visiting a set for 6 hours or whatever it might be. These could be rest period violations or other things that happen to a performer. So those things need to be reported. I can't stress it enough. And calling a field rep who who you've come to know over time might be a little more comfortable for our performers. And we do find that than calling vast SAG-AFTRA, you know what I mean? So that,
Yeah, no, and I mean, can I just say, I mean, I think members should feel comfortable reaching out to SAG-AFTRA in any form because we will protect their confidentiality. But it's only natural that if you happen to have a relationship with a field rep who you've met on set or who's there just face to face, there's a natural human connection there that's helpful too. So, but it is so essential, and really, instead of having to be a shop steward or a deputy or something like that, what all we really need from members on those sets is to let us know what's going on so that you can be the eyes and ears of the union without having to intervene yourself, because we do have a team of people who can do that and do that promptly and address those problems. So it's a system that can be very functional, but members do need to have confidence in reaching out to the union. And remember that the union is you. It's not, yes, it may seem vast and it may seem like this big bureaucracy, but actually this union is led by members just like you. It's it's here to serve member interests. That's our whole purpose in being here. So let's talk for a second about one of the more controversial on-set safety issues that's arisen in recent years, which is of course the project that's called Rust. The on-set safety incident that happened there, which resulted in the tragic death of cinematographer Helena Hutchins and the wounding of the director Joel Souza, has gotten an immense amount of media attention, of course, and resulted in criminal prosecutions and all kinds of investigation and consideration on the part of everyone, including this union. Jim, from your perspective, maybe talk a little bit about what was done wrong on that set and how things could have been done better.
Yeah, sure, Duncan. Look, we know now that there were safety lapses on that set around the firearms protocols, that safety bulletin number 1 was not being adhered to. People on that set were expressing some concerns, but unfortunately, none of the unions received a call, a report. And, had that had happened, we would have sent a field rep down there to investigate. We would have contacted the producers immediately, contacted the other unions if they, as necessary, escalated to an emergency Zoom as necessary, would have made sure that they're doing protocols, would have looked at the armorer's resume, and if we didn't get assurances in writing as necessary, we would move to do what we had to do, and not move forward. This is what we do. I mean, we get a report. Sometimes we have to first determine if it's valid or not. There's a lot of false alarms. Like I said, people get discharged. They call us. We investigate every single report fully, and I know we would have done it here. And I think this really speaks to the need for reporting in our industry more than anything else. We deplore the charges that were brought against Alec Baldwin, who as a performer expected the industry standards. He expected an experienced armorer to hand him a firearm that had been fully inspected and cleared. We're glad to see a trend emerging since then of non-fireable weapons being used more and more, prop guns like that. We do have a field rep now who's based in Albuquerque, New Mexico, not directly as a result of Rust, but just because the area has been growing in production. We ultimately did put a field rep in New Mexico, and that's been working out terrific. Also in California now, there is a new safety regulation coming down the pike, new legislation that in 2025, productions who do want to benefit from the tax credit will have to have a set safety supervisor on every set. There are mandatory guidelines for the use of firearms, which had been advised by our industry, and there's a minimum training standard for armorers that will be in place. So I just wanted to say that.
Samantha, do you want to add? I mean, do you want to add anything from a stunt performer perspective on?
I guess I'm just always going to go back to my feeling of having that armor that really they weld the gun so that it can't do the things that could kill someone, and which is why I feel so safe in New York with the armorers that we have. So I think just having more armorers on will still allow us to use the weapons, but just safely. And this obviously did not happen in this case. And I think also in this case, it was one of those things where so many things went wrong. It wasn't just one thing, it was many things. And if it's possible that if somebody had called for one of the safety issues, because there seemed to be several on there, so it just is an unfortunate thing where so many things went wrong. Because an AD would have checked, armorer would have double checked, and even, you don't ever want to blame the actor, but the actor would check too. Like, there's just so many things that were like, how did this happen? But things like this do happen, and I think Jim's right. It just makes you really know that we should report more, because then it could stop something from happening. And it comes up in stunts all the time where you can't say, oh, we can't do this 10 more times because it could lead to this. It's always when something bad happens that you say, well, if we didn't do it 10 times and we only did it 9 times, that's just, you can't really predict the future, and you can't really say this could have happened if we didn't stop.
Right. It's kind of like the whole, like, concept we've got of, if you see something, say something, these kinds of things, it's true in so many areas of life. If people take responsibility to report things, then it provides an opportunity to prevent something really tragic from happening. And, obviously no one can know for sure, but it seems quite probable that if there had been reports made here and there had been field rep, for example, on set, I mean, these are things that could have been addressed. And on top of that, when we're talking about things that are life-threatening, life safety issues, it needs to be systematic, right? The result has to be systematic in a way that it doesn't just rely on one person doing something the right way. Just like, you don't, when you get on an airplane, there's checklists, there's procedures to help double check everything, because you don't want to just rely on one person doing their job the right way in order to protect everyone's safety. But I do feel really strongly, and agree with Jim, it is not right to put the responsibility on an actor for something that's not their responsibility on the set. And that's not to say that actors can't be trained and actors can't help, have some additional level of checking or protection. And some do, I know, because they've gotten that kind of training. But when it's a role or responsibility of someone like an armorer or someone like an AD or whoever it may be to do that, then, it isn't, in my view, right to then look to an actor and say, oh, well, you should have done what someone else's job was to handle this safety responsibility, especially when it's, well defined in industry protocols and safety, decisions. So anyway, but I mean, I think we have to circle back around and just say, I mean, this situation is tragic, shouldn't have happened. And probably the most important thing to come out of it, hopefully, is the necessary protections to be put in place to ensure that something like this never happens again. And the more we can see airsoft guns used, and the more we can see, like you said, Samantha, weapons being disabled in such a way that they cannot possibly be.
And there be real weapons, and also, it like I keep saying, I mean, there would never be a real bullet that could actually kill someone on a set ever in New York, because we just don't have those same gun laws that they do in. So that's a whole other state discussion, but.
So just turning back to the department itself, Jim, I just want to ask you, the field services department has expanded both here in the United States and also internationally. Can you just, touch on briefly why that expansion has been necessary?
Yeah. About 15 years ago or so, Duncan, we started to see work drift into other states from Los Angeles and New York. And they were basically lured by tax incentives, as we know. And new hubs started to spring up. You have Georgia, Louisiana, now New Mexico. Well, you have Vancouver, you have Toronto. Even Illinois has a lot of work. So we had to meet the needs of our members working on these sets to get field reps, to get a presence out on those sets. So we started with hiring a rep in Atlanta. We brought one into Chicago. There's one who works in Dallas, Joel Reamer. He covers both. He used to cover both New Mexico and Louisiana, but now we have a rep, Karen Silver, who is in Albuquerque. We have Chris Comte up in Seattle, and he goes to Vancouver. Calvin Haltenhoff goes to Toronto. So. Joel is also going to Mexico. He just was in Colombia. So there is a need. The work is spread out. We have to have that presence. We also have a rep based in Denmark, Katja Holm, who was the former president of the Danish Actors Union and is now a consultant with us on set. So she's ready to go. So we have a field rep in Europe. We're really glad about that. Yeah, I mean, that's where the work goes. That's where we have to go, Duncan.
As we sort of approach the close of this podcast, because we are limited on time, although I feel like we could talk about this for hours, tell us a little bit more about the SaferSet 24/7 hotline. When should members use it, and what can they expect when they call that number?
Yeah, the SaferSet hotline is for it's for non-business hours, basically nights, weekends, holidays. I mean, even it's 24/7. If they call it during a Monday at 2:00, they're going to get us. But if you can call your nearest local during business hours, you're better off. But it's basically for on-set safety or health concerns, extreme working conditions. That's what it should be reserved for. The number is on the back of your card, 844-SAFER-SET. But again, that's. We look for those calls. We have a system set up around the country. We have staffers for every single state. And, they sleep with their cell phones on and we're ready. You call, we're going to respond. But, we have screeners who basically determine the validity of the call. A lot of people call, they don't understand that it's really for on-set safety. And but if it is a valid call, it goes through to the field rep. And the field rep calls the member, determines what's going on, addresses it with the set. We have all the phone numbers. We have all the call sheets. And we get it fixed. We validate that, confirm that with the member or members who called. In rare cases, we go out to the set as necessary, but in most cases, we get it done that way. So basically, it's been working well for many years. And we're very happy about that.
Jim, I also want to just ask, if a member is on a set and there isn't a field representative present, but they have concerns, let's say that those concerns don't necessarily rise to an emergency that they feel like they should call the emergency hotline, what should they do to get that information to somebody or to have that addressed?
First of all, safety. It might happen one time in your career, and you don't feel comfortable doing it. Don't do it. Don't be pressured. Take a step back. Call the union. If a field rep isn't there, call the union. We have contractual protections against repercussions. Ask for the stunt coordinator. Ask for the first AD. Let them know your concerns. If stunt or stunt-related activity is planned, there should be a stunt coordinator on that set. But for other concerns, if it's doesn't rise to that level, performers who are familiar with the CBA, if they're comfortable, they could on their own address a lot of work rules and a lot of issues.
And it's totally okay if they don't. Like if as a performer you don't feel comfortable addressing yourself,
Absolutely.
Don't hesitate to reach out to the union. That's what we're here for. Don't feel bad. I guess Jim, what I'm sort of getting at is, I feel like if something's happening, then forget SAG-AFTRA for a moment. Like in the world, there's times you call 911 and there's times you call like a non-emergency number. So if you're dealing with an on-set emergency or a situation that you feel like there's a safety problem, then just call the SaferSet hotline, right? Like you've already said.
Yep.
If you feel like it's not a situation that requires an immediate response, but you want to report it or whatever, then you call the regular number at 855 SAG-AFTRA. You can go online. What are the ways that you can?
You could call the main line of the Los Angeles local, the New York local, or any particular local where you're working. They will connect you. It'll go to the contact center, and they will connect you to the business rep or the manager, the director of a department who you need to speak to. And even I should mention in the SAG-AFTRA app on the website. There is a texting mechanism there, which will also go to the contact center. Now that's for non-emergencies. That's not going to get to us right away, but certainly we will get it. And we hear from the contact center all the time in field services. So those are the mechanisms for reaching out, and please do.
Well, Thank you so much, Jim. Thank you, Samantha, for being here on the SAG-AFTRA podcast today. I want to remind everybody the Safer Set hotline, that's 844-SAFER-SET. Or if you don't like to dial by letters, it's 844-723-3773. It's on your membership card as well. And the general number for SAG-AFTRA is 855-SAG-AFTRA. And as Jim mentioned, you can report issues within the member app and also from the website, including through web chat. If you want to email, you can email info@sagaftra.org. So please know that we want members to reach out to the union about any of these issues or concerns. That's what we're here for. And again, thanks, Jim. Thanks, Samantha, for bringing your expertise to today's episode of the SAG-AFTRA podcast. And we will look forward to hearing the next one. Thanks. The SAG-AFTRA podcast is produced and edited by Aaron Goddard and John Small. Supervising producers are Pamela Greenwald, Shira Reich, and Michael McNulty, with production and marketing support from Damon Romine, Jalika Conte, Delaney Howard, Margot Giordano, Joe Mulgado, May Wong. The podcast is hosted by yours truly, Duncan Crabtree Ireland.